talking about what Git and GitHub is. It is going to make your lives a lot easier if you're looking to get into like software development or software engineering. If you ever have internships, you're going to be using Git and GitHub. At least these are the most popular platforms for this kind of stuff. But I'll be getting into it, explaining like what it is and how it can make your lives easier. So Git, does anyone have any idea what Git is? I know you guys said you like made a GitHub account, but do you have any idea what Git is?
Collaborate on code or something?
Yeah, that's like that would be what GitHub is. Git is like, do you know what Git is? I'm sure you do. Yeah, GitHub is like the most like commonly used. Everyone knows what GitHub is, right? Like you make your own account. So Git is open source version control tool. So this is something that you would download. This isn't like a website. It is, and if when I refer to version control, I mean like how people manage their code. So I mean, I guess intuitively, if you look at the word, it's like, different versions of code can exist in some sort of project, and it's just helping maintain that. It was created by the developers at Linux in 2005, so it's like pretty old. But it is like by far the most used modern version control system that there is. I know like what Mercurial exists out there if you use that. ClearCase, IBM. But yeah, everyone knows Git. Everyone uses Git. GitHub, so this is what you guys were talking about. This is a website. It's a cloud-based service, so you can literally go into your URLs. Howdy, I'm just gonna sit. So GitHub is a website, a cloud-based service. You can go into your URLs, type in github.com, and it is a way to help developers store and manage their code. So if you go on GitHub, there's like thousands and thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of just like repositories that people make. If you don't know what that term is, I'll get into it later. But it also helps track and control changes to code. So obviously you'll have different people collaborating on one project, and Git and GitHub just makes it super easy to help know like what changes have been made and like changes that you make, putting that into the project, stuff like that. Something I emphasized was you don't need GitHub to use Git, but you cannot use GitHub without using Git. I don't know if that really makes sense. Because again, like these aren't the only two ways of version control. There's different, I think I have it on here. Yeah, so this is a comparison. There's like, people get really confused on the difference between the two. GitHub utilizes Git. Git is something you install locally. So you can go like Git download, and it's like a .exe file that will run and install it for you. Whereas GitHub is on the cloud, right? It's hosted in the cloud. It's a website you can go to. Git's owned by Linux. GitHub was purchased by Microsoft in 2018. Git is focused on version control and code sharing, whereas GitHub is focused on centralized source code hosting. So this is what I talked about. People will go on GitHub, make repositories, and host it on GitHub, so anyone can see it. Or I guess if you make a private repository, it won't be. Git is something on the CLI, so you can run your Git. After you download Git, you can run it, and it'll pop up with like the same little black box type stuff in there, different commands. And then GitHub's on the web. You'll see Git's competitors and GitHub's competitors, and I have honestly never used anything else. I know Atlassian is it popular and GitLab is popular, but I've never used those, and I've only used Git for version control. Git's open source license, and I know GitHub has accounts are free, but there is like a pro version if you want to pay, and they give you like different perks. So that's all for the presentation. Oh, well, I guess not. I think one more slide, yeah. So this is a cheat sheet. There's tons of cheat sheets out there. So if you're first getting it, I didn't get your year, by the way, but have you used Git and GitHub before?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I know even for someone like me, I've been using Git and GitHub for, about a year, but I'll still get confused on like, man, I'm getting this weird error. I don't know what this command does. So like there are plenty of cheat sheets out there, which you can see. I'm not going to talk about every single one. Well, I guess I technically won't be on the hands-on workshop because we'll just be sort of going through all of these and how to start fresh. Like if you guys have no idea what Git and GitHub is, like I'll be going from scratch. Like I want to do something with Git and GitHub, and then I'm going to show you guys. So let's do that. So do you guys not have your laptops on you? Yeah, you guys can get it out. And hopefully you guys can see my beautiful home screen. I'll give you a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to be going through, well, actually, I guess I can just get started with this. Git download. Type that in. easy into whatever web browser you're using. You can click on this. For whatever operating system you have, you can download it. This is for installing Git, and then you don't need to have any sort of download for GitHub. But what I will say, and again, A&M should give you an account, but if I sign out. Oh wait, if you guys want to pay attention to this, this is something I find out recently. You guys see this like globe? You see all these cool animations? That is actually people using GitHub at this exact moment and pushing stuff to like see this like thing that just flew across here? That's someone pushing code to some repository across. Isn't that awesome? I forget when they announced it, but this is like real time people that are using GitHub right now and using it. And you can see all these things. I just thought that was pretty cool. But this is the home page. If you don't have an account, you can click sign up. It's completely free. But let me sign in. Okay. So I'll give you guys a few minutes. If you guys don't have Git installed, I'll give you a little bit of time. And if you guys have any questions in the Zoom, I'll try my best to answer them if you guys are running into problems. Yeah, I still have problems using Git and GitHub, so but it's good to get a head start if you guys are freshmen or sophomores, because again, it's not really until your junior year that you'll actually need to use Git and GitHub. It's like a required thing in one of your classes. If you're CS, if you're any other major.
So it gives like a lot of options and download like again. What should you like?
It's a good question. Let me see. You guys are on back. Oh gosh. I'm so sorry. I have no clue. I've only used Windows. I think like it starts at .exe for me, and then I run it and it installs. Just do whatever you guys think is best. I doubt there will be any errors that'll pop up if you have like the wrong version or something. Yeah, and then you can check to see if like your computer recognizes you have Git installed by just typing Git into like a CMD. Yeah. Let's play some lo-fi in the back. Just kind of relaxing. Oh, did you go to the past datathon?
Yeah.
Nice. Did you have fun?
Yeah. I spent so I was like trying to frustrate and I was like trying and I got like 6 of the coordinators to help me and all in a row and it couldn't help. And then in like the last like 3 hours I figured out how to do it. But then I needed to like do it from I needed to look at the web crawl and I was working on that. So I ended up working on like 10 months of code for like 10 minutes.
That is terrible.
Yeah,
that's just the essence of hackathons, right? Like I've had that exact same situation happen.
Yeah. But now I know how to work.
Well, that's good. You got something out of it. Yeah. I don't know. Oh yeah, what's up? Yeah. Are you good? Do you have Git downloaded? Oh yeah. So you will need to download Git also. So like just type into Google Git download, and then I think when you click Windows, it'll run this you'll have a download, and then you just run it. What's up? No, partially because I like recently found out that it existed. I didn't even realize that they had a desktop application, but then by that point I was so familiar with the website. But yeah, I honestly should probably look into it because it does look really
Yeah, I
cool.
know it has like it makes it easy to like use it. It's like it like does it all for you. So like it'll like init and then like it'll say like push and then like
Oh, that's nice. And yeah, I need to do that.
yeah, I want to learn doing it. So
Yeah. Yeah, if you guys notice this blue background, it's because my laptop broke. Or like I had a corrupt SSD. Obviously, no one told me I had a corrupt SSD, so I spent like a week factory resetting my computer over and over and over. And then I had to take it to the IT people, and then I had to buy a new one on Amazon, and it was this whole thing. So yeah, that's why that is why my computer has nothing on it. This is like bare bones. Are you guys good in? Hopefully you guys are good in the Zoom for the workshop. You guys have to get installed. Is it still downloading for you guys? Would you guys rather I just demo and you guys can just follow along? Would that be easier? Oh, okay. Are you guys cool with that? Okay. Sure. Great. I can't close out of this. Okay. So start with very basic stuff, right? So you're a CS major, and you're like, I want to get started with making a project, right? Like you have a project idea and you want to host it somewhere. So you're like, okay, what are you going to do first, right? So you're probably going to go in your desktop, you're going to make a new folder, and let's just call it like test repo, right? You could call it whatever you want. So once that's made, this is where you want to start your project, right? This is like step one, is just making your working directory. So you can open it in whatever IDE you want. So I use VS Code, and it's really zoomed in. But sure, like cool. So we have this working directory, and this is where all of our code's going to be for this project that we're going to do. So let's open up Git. I like using the Git bash because it has really pretty colors. So I want to tell Git like this is where I want to initialize my repository. So very simple command, Git Init. So initialize an empty Git repository within this location on our computer. So now you'll see this like cool thing master here. This is the name of the branch that we're in. I'm going to get more into branches later. But okay, let's say that for this project, right? Like I want to add, let's do this. So we're going to click new file. Maybe you'll do a Python file. Maybe you do C++ file. But like, let's say you want to do like a .txt, right? This is like the first thing you ever want to put in your project, and you're like, awesome. So let's say let's call it like Howdy World, right? So cool. Like pretend this is a program, and we're like, we have our first program that we want to run in our repository. So now what? So at that point, let's do Git Status. I'll explain again what Git Status is later, but you'll notice that it says that this is like an untracked file. So if we hover over this test.txt, it says untracked on the right pop-up thing. And basically, all this means is that Git recognizes that in our repository, there's this test.txt file that has been added, but like it really doesn't know, like it's not going to do anything to it, right? So that's what this is saying. We need to add it to our staging environment. There's like a whole sequential process with like adding files to different stages. So we'll need to do Git Add, and let me pull up something that might help visualization, like a cheat sheet. So if you can imagine this right here, can't zoom in. This is where GitHub is, okay? This is like the final product. This is where we want to be. And currently we're just in our working directory. So there's like, we have to Git Add into the staging, Git Commit. You can look up documentation on staging. It's like this whole thing, but basically we need to Git Add this test.txt into the staging environment. So this is now where we are. And once you're in the staging environment, now you need to bundle up everything in your staging environment into a commit. So like you can imagine whenever you're committing code, you're saying like, okay, I have this bundle of code inside this commit and I want to send it to GitHub, right? I want to send it into this repository that we're in. So if you notice, if I do git status again, so it says no commits yet, it's an untracked file. But now that we added it, we do get, it's like, okay, there's no commits yet, but these are the changes that we made that we do want to be committed, which is a new file that we have, right? This test.txt. So at that point, we're like, okay, now we need to commit our file. So again, if we go back here, committing it brings it into the staging environment into our local repository, which is not the same as our remote repository. This right here is GitHub. This is the final thing. This is where we want to be. So we'll do git commit m. This .m flag stands for a message. So typically, if you're working at a company and you have code that you want to push, it's it's like good practice to put some message like adding test.txt. You're going to see this message pop up in GitHub, but it's basically saying this commit that I'm making, like this is what it does, right? You don't want to just be putting code into this repository. The other software developers that you're developing, it's like, well, what does this code do, Jack? Like, what is it doing? And you want to say, okay, well, this commit specifically is adding this test.txt file. So we're going to commit that. Sure. So it's saying one file change, it's one insertion. So after we commit, now this is the fun part. So we're going to go to GitHub. By the way, if you guys want to add me, it's my GitHub. But we want to make a new repository, right? So we're gonna, let's go back. We're gonna click on new. So this is what I was talking about. Thousands and thousands of people have repositories on GitHub that currently exist, open source, anyone can contribute to it, but let's just call this, well, I mean, I like calling it the same thing as my, what do we call it? Test repo. So we'll say test repo, right? Cool, it's a cool name. You can make it a public repository so anyone can view it on the internet, or you can make it private. It's up to you. A good practice is to add a Readme file. So a Readme just says like, this is what my code does in this repository, you know, what is it doing? It also helps with people who, like, if you have certain like JavaScript programs that need to be run, you need to like put in the README like, hey, you need to install this first before you use my code. So it's really helpful. I'm not going to do any of this. We're just going to create this repository, okay? Boom. So I mean, oh well, thankfully GitHub has its own little step-by-step thing, but this is like an empty repository, nothing in our repository right now. And you can actually find this. I mean, if you want to put in your URL, github.com/jacksebastian17/test-repo. There's nothing in it. But let's go back to our project now. So again, we have test repo as a working directory, and we have this test.txt file. Now we need to push it. This is the term push it to this repository, right? So we want to get this in here. So what do we need to do first is we need to say, well, Jack, if you're doing a git push, right? If I do that command, like, where am I pushing to, right? I have no idea where I'm going. It could push to anywhere. So this is where we need to do git. Oh, I think it actually has it here. Yeah. So git remote add origin, and then what's the origin? So where are we pushing? We can just copy and paste this HTTPS address. So this is basically where we're telling Git in our working directory, in our local repository, if I ever do a git push, this is where it's going to be going to. So we do that. We have no errors. Cool. So now what we do, I don't think you can actually do git. Yeah, you can't do git push yet. So you need to set the upstream. So that basically means whenever you're pushing stuff and pulling, so, and I mean, if you guys know, pulling is saying there's stuff on GitHub that I don't have, I want to now put that in here. And I'll give you an example of that. But the very first thing you have to do whenever you're making this is set the upstream to master. So in other words, this master branch that we have on our my local machine needs to go to the master branch in here. So once you do that, it should push it. Oh, well, perfect. So it has a bunch of text, master into master. So let's refresh. Hopefully it's done it. There we go, guys. Isn't that awesome? You can literally do this. I can add another file. So let's just do that. Like, let's do test2.txt. Put a bunch of stuff in there. And it's cool, right? It's like color coded, at least in VS Code. And you can hover over it with this U, which means it's untracked. So it's not even in our staging yet. So what's the process? Git add test2.txt, git commit. So now this is the commit, again, is we're bundling up everything in our staging environment and saying we want to be able to eventually push this onto our GitHub repo. So git commit m, and we'll say like adding test2.txt. Okay, so now it's in our local repository, and this is where we do a final just git push. No problems, no errors. Let's go back here. If we click refresh, there we go. Pretty simple, right? No? Are you guys following along? Right. So, I mean, you can look up the cheat sheets, but yeah, like when you have bare bone of like a folder with files in it, you're currently just like it's just your working directory, right? Staging is where you want to put all the code that you want to eventually put into a commit. So like I didn't have to technically add like let's say both of these weren't in GitHub yet, and I only wanted to add test.txt. I mean, I could only add that, put it into a commit, and then push it. And the only thing that would show up in here is the first text file. Yeah, it's definitely like really confusing at first, like when you're first learning Git, but there's like a very sequential process, like you need to git add and then git commit and then push it, right? But yeah, I mean, this was basically, I mean, just like a very simple crash course. So now we're going to talk about branches. So I'm going to give you guys a hypothetical. So imagine that in this repository here, like this is like a company's repository, right? I'm talking about like just like thousands of files are in here, and they're all working together to make like this cool web application. If you're interning somewhere, it's probably not the best idea to just kind of, you know, jumble up some code, put it in here, and you're like, oh, let's just push it, right? Let's just send it, because you're probably gonna have some errors. So thankfully, the cool thing about Git is there's something called branches. So maybe you guys can intuitively know what a branch is, but basically we're currently in the master branch. It's also called main sometimes, but basically this is like the cool branch. Like this is where all of this, whenever we're deploying this application, like it's pulling code from here. But what if I don't want to, like, what if I want to edit code in the master branch, but like not have it like affect anything, right? Does that make sense? Like I don't want to just push something onto the master branch and, you know, mess everything up. So you want to create another branch. So we only have one branch here. So let's do this. Let's do git, or it's not git, it's git checkout, B for branch. So this is basically saying we want to change branches, right? I don't want to add stuff into the master branch. I want to add another branch. And let's call it what, like test branch, sure, right? So we're basically telling Git, oh, well, look here. We're now not in the, so this is whenever we're in the master branch. Now we're checking out into this newly created branch called test branch, called test branch. I actually think if I refresh, nothing will show up. Yeah. So GitHub actually hasn't recognized that we have made a new branch yet because there's nothing inside the branch. So what do we need to do now? So let's say, just to be funny, I guess, like we'll have error, right? This file that we're making has, or hopefully it doesn't have an error. We'll just say, hopefully this doesn't cause an error, right? So I have made this file as an intern, and I'm like, man, this is awesome. Like I have this code. Hopefully, this code doesn't cause any errors with the master branch. But thankfully I created a new branch, right? So like, and this is going to make a lot more sense in a second. So what's the process? Git add error.txt, git commit, adding error.txt into test branch, right? And the cool thing about the Git CLI is it's like very nicely neat, color coded. This is what branch I'm in. Once I commit it, watch what happens when I do git push. Great. Git push set its origin test. You could read the code. It's probably actually telling you what's happening. We're just pushing test branch in a test branch. So if I refresh, oh, it actually has a little pop-up. That's pretty neat. Oh, would you like that? It's not one branch anymore. There's two branches. And look at this, right? So you're probably wondering, well, where's the error.txt, Jack? Where is it? Well, it's actually hidden in this new branch here. There we go. Pretty neat, right? So whenever I was talking about like deploying stuff, basically like if you use Vercel or any other deployment application, basically like that deployment system is pulling code from usually the master branch. So like if I was to go to like a web application, actually I can go to, I'm in an org called Tammy Datathon, but we have this is something I built, this Discord authentication system. Great, I have to log in. Okay, you get the idea. Whatever just showed up, that's actually pulling code from the master branch of that repository. Like this whole thing, this whole application, right? It's pulling code from the repository that's the master branch. But thankfully, I can add a file in here and it's not affecting it. So now you're probably thinking, well, it's kind of useless if it's just sitting in this branch, right? I mean, what's the point of this if it's never going to be put in the master branch? So this is what, I mean, GitHub has this whole little pop-up thing, but it's saying this test branch has a recent push, compare and pull request. So basically what we're saying here is there's newly added stuff in this test branch. Jack, like, do you want to compare it and see if you want to eventually add it to the master branch? Like, is that something you're interested in? So this is what we refer to in GitHub as pull requests. So the PRs, you'll be more familiar with it if you do more development. But if you're interning somewhere, you're going to have to submit a pull request to a senior software engineer or a software developer, and they'll check your code. So this is what all we're doing. So we're saying adding error.txt into the new branch. Okay, so we're going to create this pull request. And what GitHub is going to do is okay, did you see when it was yellow and it just turned green? So it's saying like, cool, like, well, good news, Jack, like this branch has no conflicts with the base branch, master branch. So if you want, you can click this button and we're going to merge them. So again, if I was to go back to my code, master branch doesn't have my error.txt file. But that's why I created this pull request to say, hey, can you check if there's any merge conflicts? And if there isn't, then let's add it. So we click this. Do I want to confirm the merge? Sure. Click that and watch what happens. Pull request successfully merged. Saying merge, go back to our code. And would you like that? Master branch now has our merged file error.txt. Is that pretty cool? I don't know. I feel like when I was first learning about it, I was like, man, this is like the coolest thing ever. Imagine a world where we didn't have Git and GitHub. I mean, software development would just be impossible because everyone's working on different things. There's no way to check like, hey, did you like make a change to this file? But like, well, I made a change to this file. Like now there's a conflict, right? So yeah, I mean, what else could I show you guys? I guess I can show you like cloning a repository. So this is now, so GitHub is open source. I keep saying this, thousands and thousands of repositories exist on GitHub. But let's say you come across like this cool project, like your friend's telling you like Jack, like there's this awesome repository, this cool project called test repo. In the Jack Sebastian 17 thing, like you need to use this. Like it is like just play around with it. Like it's the coolest thing ever. So let's pretend, for example, I did not have test repo. Okay, cool. It is open in GitHub or VS Code. So let's try it again. So now, like I mean, I don't have test repo, right? But let's say I type in github.com/Jack Sebastian. This is what my friend sent me, and like, man, like look at this awesome code here, right? Like, isn't that something you'd want to use? So what do we do here? So this is where we basically, let's make a folder. So we're kind of working backwards now. So now we're doing test repo. So this is the folder that I want to put all of this code in here. I want to store it on my computer in here. So how do we go about doing that? So let's open this up in VS Code. Great. Okay. So this doesn't exist. Let's not save it. So it's empty, right? There's nothing in here. It's a new folder. But I want to put all this awesome code into this folder. So how do we go about doing that? So there's a command called Git Clone, which basically just clones all this code, copies it, and just pushes it to this working directory on the computer. So you click this little drop-down code thing, copy paste this, go in here, open up your command line. Again, I like using the color coding because it looks pretty. And notice, remember how there was like blue text here and there's no blue text? That's because this isn't like a repository yet, it's just a folder, right? But Git Clone. Whoa, oh, well, okay, I actually made a mistake. So I guess it makes your own test repo folder. Let's open it. Whoa, look at all that code, guys. Now, let's go in here. Okay, now we're actually in test repo. And watch what happens when I open the command line. And git bash. Oops. Whoa. Now we're inside the master branch. So now I can test3.txt with some stuff in it. And now I want to say, okay, git add. This is what I usually do. This period just means add everything. Very simple, okay? I'm only adding one file, so it makes it easy to just do this. But if you're adding multiple files, which you will be, you should probably do a git add dot. Git commit, adding test3.txt into master. I'm gonna need to do the git. I'm just gonna shorthand it. Cool. Come on. There we go. And it has like these cool little things. Like 12 seconds ago, I pushed this into this branch. 6 minutes ago, 14 minutes ago. Yeah. I think honestly, I mean, I think this is like a very short crash course. But do you guys have like any questions about this?
Like, theoretically, since it's open source, everyone can edit whatever repository they want.
Yes and no. So usually, like if I was to go to, how would it level it? So let's go to my profile, or let's just go to GitHub. So, okay, so to answer your question, you probably won't be able to just edit whatever code you want. You would have to send a pull request. So like if I was to go to like tamuhack stuff, like tamuhack or /help queue, just go from this. Okay, so this is like, look at all this stuff. Oh, also this is what the Readme is. So this Readme, if you guys aren't familiar, it's like what I said earlier, what it is, right? What this code is, and more importantly, or I guess equally as important, how do I use this code? So if I keep scrolling down, it'll basically say how to deploy it, right? You can use Heroku, do these, you know, you have to install Meteor on their website, right? Make sure you have Meteor installed, and it's pretty cool. So that's the purpose of the Readme. I know I'm like going on a tangent, but see if I go in these pull requests, these are things that people made, code changes, and they basically just want to say these are the commits they made. Like, hey, is this cool if I merge it now? So for most repositories, you probably can't just like go in and edit stuff. You'd have to create a pull request, and then it's up to the person and like one of the main collaborators on the repo to say like to look over your pull request and see if they want to merge it. Yeah. Yeah, as you can see, tons of files, but let's actually try it so I can show you instead of just doing this test repo over and over and just. I can. God, oh my gosh. Okay, get out of there. So let's open my desktop now that I know I don't have to make a new folder. So I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, I don't want all that stuff. Okay, so let's say like I come across tamuhack's help queue, which is a pretty cool thing. We were going to use this for Datathon, but it's basically like this queue system where it's like, hey, I need help from an organizer at this hackathon, and you enter the queue and then someone helps you. But let's say like for whatever reason you want, maybe you just want to do this in your free time. You're like, hey, I want to use it. Go here, copy the HTTPS address. We're in queue, open the CLI. It's obviously going to take a lot longer. Oh, I mean, I could do it from here. Screw it. Oh, that was pretty fast. So if I open up this, we have all the stuff, which is pretty cool, right? It's everything in here. Now it's in this folder called help. Well, it names that help queue, but so yeah. If you're wondering about like there's something called merge conflicts. So this is where there's different collaborators on repos. They make a change to a file, but you also make a change to a file, and they push their code, but you haven't pulled stuff yet. That just reminded me. Let's do this. I haven't told you guys about pulling stuff. So test repo. Oh, wait. It does not exist. Give me 1 second. I need to make it exist on my system. And yeah, like I said earlier, all the cheat sheet stuff is out there if you ever need help or memorizing the different commands. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys what pulling stuff is. So we push stuff to repositories, and that's pretty simple, right? We make changes to this code, like to code, and now we just want to send it to the remote repository. But let's say you're in this repository with your buddy, and you know, it's like a project, and he adds stuff overnight, but you're sleeping. Like he stays up all night just doing all this stuff. So I'm going to pretend, let's just pretend here, that he adds a file called friend.txt, put some stuff in here, right? So let's commit it, add it. So, well, would you look at that? Right now, like friend.txt just got added, but well, look here. We don't have it here, right? So that's a problem because we want the most updated code for for what we need to work on. So what you can do, will Git Status say anything? Okay, it says it's. Let's do Git Pull. So pulling is saying, look into the remote repository on GitHub. Take anything that we don't have in our local repository and just pull it in. That's basically what we're doing. So if we do Git Pull, notice that it's not here right now. It says here friend.txt got added. It's an insertion, and now we have it. When I talk about conflicts, I talk about like if I'm editing this to make like something here, and my friend and I push my code, and my friend is editing this version of it because he didn't Git pull. Well, now there's a conflict because now like he's adding stuff in this line, but I already added stuff to this line, and he's trying to overwrite my stuff. So thankfully, Git will tell you, hey, there's a merge conflict. We tried pushing your code, but you don't have the most up-to-date version of this repository. So VS Code has its own built-in like UI for like determining if you want to keep this change or this change, like if you want to keep your changes or your friend's changes, and you can just say, no, I want to keep this change. But it makes it really easy. So yeah, like a good practice is if you just got like done with the long nap or you just woke up, and there's a good chance that your friend added stuff into this repository, it's just a good idea to do a Git pull just to get the most up-to-date code. Yeah.
Does the Git pull always take from the main branch?
Yeah, so whenever you notice that whenever we were doing the Git, what was it? Git push set upstream, whatever. That upstream is basically saying anytime we want to push code and we want to pull or fetch code, because there's a Git fetch, this is the branch we want to do it to. So that was when we did, what was it? Git push set upstream origin master. So we're saying we want to be pulling from the master branch. That's what you were saying. So yeah, that's what that does. And like you saw earlier, there was an error when I just did a simple git push. That's because we didn't set the upstream yet. So you do need to say it. But now if I was to add text, I'm sure it would have no problems with just a simple git push command. Oh, and cool. So I tried pushing nothing because I didn't make any changes to this, and it told me that everything is up to date. But let's try doing this. Let's go into friend.txt and let's edit this, right? So let's like. You can push without pulling. I think if there's no merge conflict, you can double check me on that. So like, let's say I add a whole new file, but my friend edited this one file I have. Yeah, I don't think Git will have a problem with you pushing because they don't even have the file yet, so there's no way there could be a merge conflict, right? The file would just simply get added to the repo. But the merge conflict only happens when there's like code that you both are editing at the same time, or code that you're making edits to, but isn't the most up to date. It's kind of confusing. You can look up stuff, but let's just say, for example, like I just add a bunch of stuff, right? So I commit it. Well, so if I go into my friend.txt, it's not this. So hopefully it says something. Okay, I don't know what it's saying, but if I git pull, it should just live. Yeah, now it changes it. I guess we could just decode it right now. So let's like add another line and just add some more stuff. Could I git push? Let's see, I made it. Blah, blah, blah. So friend.txt isn't the most up to date, but test3.txt is what we're adding. So let's git add, git commit m changed test3.txt. Oh, well, okay. So that answers your question. So Git will give you an error that basically says your updates were rejected because your remote contains work that you don't have locally. So then it tells you to git pull before you want to do anything.
Wait, so Git Add.
So Git Add puts it into the staging environment. Git Commit bundles up everything in the staging environment and says this is now the code that I want to push. Let's go, yeah, here. So you Git Add, working directory now gets put into the staging, committing it puts into a local repository, and then when you push it, it gets put to the remote one. And then Git Pull works backwards, right? So there's stuff in this remote repository. When we pull it, we're now putting it back into our local repository.
What's the difference between that?
Pulling won't actually change anything. I think fetching will only notify you like what changes are made, but it won't actually overwrite anything in your repository. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, there's plenty of stuff on here because it can get confusing. You know, if I need to Git Add or Git Commit first, but it does make your life a whole lot easier. Yeah, working directory, branch. Oh, well, it has cloning in the remote repository. Yeah. Yeah, this is a better, easier on the eyes, I think. Working, staging, local, remote, fetching and pulling. Yeah. I mean, you could like make changes to this file, and then you can like git at or. Okay. And then something else that you should make note of. Notice how when I git pulled, I made changes to test3.txt, but it didn't overwrite it. So like if I was to actually go inside my repository and look at test3.txt, I mean the blah 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 stuff isn't in there. But thankfully Git, because there isn't any conflicts, I can pull code from this repository and it doesn't overwrite it, right? Because it kind of sucks if you're making changes to this, to like you have all this code that you edited within here, and then your friend texts you and he's like, dude, like I made changes, like make sure you Git pull first. Well, now you're like, oh, like gosh, like what's gonna happen if I Git pull and like will it overwrite this stuff? And it won't, obviously, because that's what I just did. I Git pulled, but this my changes here, which if I hover over this M means modified, it doesn't override it. Yeah. Any other questions? So yeah, if you want to get started, like do what I did at the beginning, where it's like make a folder, initialize it with Git Init, add whatever files you want, create a GitHub account, make a new repository, and then you link it by this thing here. That's when you do the git remote or git, what is it? Remote add origin, that. Yeah, but super simple. It makes like, again, software development just so, I mean, it makes it a lot easier with version control and managing all your code and all the changes that are being made. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys. This is very surface level stuff though. I will say that Git and GitHub can get a little bit more complex. And if you do more software development, you'll see how complex it gets with like forking and different things. But for the most part, yeah, you can make GitHub's repositories public or private if you don't want people seeing it. And like I said earlier, it's good practice to add a README in every single repository you make, because it tells you, like, let me actually go to, oh, here. So this is, again, this is the Discord authentication app I made, and I made a little, this is my README, but this is all I need to do. So if I was to actually clone this repository and I tried to just do this, because like, let's say I know it's using Node.js, and I'm like, okay, cool, I clone it, but now what? How do I use it? Well, thankfully I have a README here that says you need to install all the dependencies and packages, and then I can run it. So because I don't actually have this stuff on my, I don't know, does that make sense? Like the README is just there to help you know how to actually start using the code. Because there's a very good chance, especially with these open source projects, that like you don't have, I don't know, MongoDB or Mongoose already installed. Okay, well you might, okay, that was a bad example, because if you use deep databases, you might actually already have that. But all this stuff, right? All these different versions, all these dependencies, there's a good chance you don't have them. So that's why I tell you in the README to npm install first, and then you can run the development. GitHub is cool because it actually scans all your files and it shows you the distribution of the languages. So this repository has 43.4% TypeScript, 40.7% JavaScript, and 50.9% CSS. So it's currently active. That's why I was able to go to it. These are the different contributors. Yeah, 55 commits, and this is me adding an API endpoint. into participants. But yeah, it's really cool if you guys just like want to play around with it. But that's all I have for you guys. If you guys are cool.
So if you wanted to change like files like inside of it, you would just like push it again. Like if you want to like add your changes to the main code.
Yeah, like you would make sure to Git pull first, add whatever, so you have the most up-to-date code, make whatever changes you want into those files, and then just push it. And then your GitHub will get updated. Yeah, thank you.